Started. All right, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Can we do a roll call, please?
Chairman Burkemper,
Present.
Melissa Boban, Alderwoman O'Neill, Alex Porter,
Present.
Tika Shaw,
Here.
Lindsay Spencer,
Here.
Alderman Weggie.
Here.
Okay, all members are present.
All right. First item on the agenda is the approval of today's agenda. Can I get a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Second.
All right, is this a verbal or roll call?
Verbal.
All in favor of approving the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is approved. The next item is the citizen comments. Do we have anyone else present?
We don't. There's nobody in the gallery who's present.
Okay. Move on to the chairman and committee reports. No formal report from me, just to say, kind of again, thanks everyone for agreeing to be on this committee. And, please realize that this is this is kind of clearly it's a new committee or commission for the city. And it's going to be kind of up to us to sort of figure out, what this, what our role is going to be, how we can be most useful. And so there's going to be a little bit of a feeling out period, I think, over the next several meetings. So, to that end, I'm always open to any suggestions from anyone else on, kind of how we think this, committee could sort of best serve the city. Various, I think it's going to be several facets, things that we can do, but I'm hoping that no one is shy about coming up with bringing up suggestions, and then the next part of kind of what we had for the other committee reports here, we just wanted to do some introductions a little bit. We didn't really kind of glossed over that last time, just to, I think it'd be a little helpful to get a better sense for people's backgrounds, where they're coming from, maybe your strengths in this, as far as sustainability topics goes. So we can kind of, get a better feel for who each other is, for those that don't know each other outside of this. And again, kind of, what everyone's sort of bringing to the table. So I will go ahead and kick it off. So I'm a Brentwood resident for the last, I think, almost 5 years now. Moved here from University City. I'm kind of a lifelong St. Louis area person. But my wife and we've got one son, a 7-year-old, who goes to McGrath. And I'm a geologist by training. I got my undergrad in geology and my master's in earth and environmental science. So I kind of, have a little bit of that formal education in some of this, in this arena, certainly on the environmental side. And then, professionally, I've been working for the past 15 years or so doing environmental consulting. And that's, been a lot of variety there, but everything from sort of mostly around like site investigations and remediation, cleaning up contaminated sites and such. But I have done some work in the sustainability realm as well. One of the main clients I've worked for in the past 6 or 7 years, I guess, has been Ameren, and we've done some climate related work for them, especially over the past year or two. And that work is kind of expanding a little bit more. And I've got a role in my company now. The company I work for is a pretty broad engineering and engineering services company. So we're getting more of the sort of sustainability consulting type of work coming our way, and there's sort of a new push with a change in administration, I think, and other things. So I've got sort of a little bit of a professional role, I guess, on that side of things too. So I'll hand it over to anyone else that wants to volunteer, and if not, then I'll have to pick an unlucky person.
I could go next.
All right, please do.
Hi, I am Melissa Bobin. Everybody calls me Mel, so if that's easier, you can call me Mel. I've lived in St. Louis for 10 years now, Brentwood for a little over 3. And I run my own digital marketing business from my home, so I'm always in Brentwood. And I live right across the street from Mayor Dimmitt, so when he set out the call for a new volunteer for the committee, I was like, I can do that, neighbor. I don't have any direct sustainability or environmental experience, but it's just an interest of mine, and the general communicating a very complicated task to a larger audience would be my wheelhouse if we need to spread the word about something, or, you know, create some communication materials. That would be something that would be my forte. No kids, just a dog. I think that's it.
Great. I'm sure your skills will be very welcome and much used.
Yeah, it will be nice to put them to use on something that's just different from what I normally do. So
Thank you. Anyone want to go next?
And I can go next, Andy.
Sure.
So I've been living in Brentwood a little bit over 2 years. We live right by Mark Twain over on Henrietta. So no kids. We have 2 dogs. So you'll probably see my wife and I walking around. It's 2 corgis. So you'll see a group of them walking around. They're wild. But I went to SLU, studied chemistry at SLU, and then transferred to WashU, got a degree in chemical engineering with a minor in energy engineering. So right now I'm working in manufacturing, kind of been floating around kind of within the plastics industry right now, doing a lot of focus on how to make, you know, their processes more sustainable, more energy efficient, people efficient, that kind of thing. Just kind of a general interest in, you know, environmental, energy policy, that kind of thing. But nothing, you know, no direct work, you know, with sustainability per se, except for, you know, kind of in that manufacturing realm. I think that's pretty much it.
All right, thank you. Next.
I'll go next. This is Tika. Hi, everyone. I've lived in Brentwood Forest since about 2003, and I bought my place in 2005. I was sort of talked into joining this group. I don't bring anything to the table as yet, except for a few ideas. I've got like 5 or 6 of them for tonight. But yeah, as far as my background, I've been a dentist for 21 years now, and I'm going to make a transition to finance, wealth management this summer. So it's pretty exciting. I'm going to have a second career. But yeah, so I work at a health center out in North County with the underserved population, mostly children. And you know, I love being in Brentwood. I want to add in any way that I can to the community with some ideas and whatever I can do and be of help. I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I can go next.
All right, great.
So I'm Lindsay Spencer, and I've been in Brentwood for 10 years. We have 3 kids, spanning the high school, middle school, and Mark Twain at this point. So my professional background, I do have a degree in conservation biology, and my first job out of college was at a landfill. So there was a wetlands restoration project. So I was hired to oversee that project, but I actually got roped into the landfill side pretty quickly, and so have a pretty good sense of what comes to a landfill and how those areas are managed. And I worked with the health department at a county level and was able to kind of jump from the landfill over to a local county level. And this was all in Washington State. And I worked in environmental health. I worked on solid waste and hazardous waste reduction programs. A lot of my work was with small businesses, and we had an incentive program in Pierce County where we could, without a regulatory role, go in and help businesses reduce their hazardous waste and incorporate recycling programs. And if they allowed us to come in and help, we provided them with some free advertising and had it was a great relationship between a health department and businesses. And we also worked with some large companies like Starbucks and IKEA in those fashions. And I also worked in children's environmental health and kind of dipped and dabbed there. But I've been a stay-at-home mom since we moved to St. Louis 10 years ago. And I also serve on our school board. So I am out in the community and I can chat with people. So in terms of getting some of the work that we're doing out there, I can help with that. And also if there's relationships that we can have between the city and the school district, I can help with that as well.
Very good. Thank you.
I think, Andy, we got all the real members, so I guess the alderman can go next.
Sure.
The real, as we like to say. Kathy, you want to go first, or you want me to set the bar low for you?
You go ahead.
All right. So Brandon Wege, I'm the Ward 2 alderman. So Alex and Lindsay, I work for you every day except right now, I guess. So I've been Brentwood resident, I think, for 18 years. I'm an aerospace engineer. Spent the majority of my career at the airplane factory up by the airport. So, you know, the logical progression is military fighter jets leads right into sustainability. So I'm very passionate about this. I don't know, it just makes sense to me from an engineering standpoint. It's good to do for the environment and everything, but it just makes sense from an engineering standpoint that we want sustainable practices. I mean, it's just so obvious to me. It's not funny. So I've been really passionate about this with Kathy's help and leadership on it. Of, you know, how can we do better? How can we go faster? How can we do more in this town? Other than that, I have two third graders at Mark Twain there, so chase them around quite a bit, and that's about it.
Great. Okay, I'll jump in. Kathy O'Neill. I moved to Brentwood in 1986 with two teenagers going to the high school. And of course, by now they are long gone. One is in Denver with a grandchild and a corgi. The other's in British Columbia. And I can't go visit her right now. And she can't come here because if she did, she'd have to quarantine 14 days when she got back home. So I'd like this all to be over. I ended up on the Board of Aldermen because I started out with planning and zoning and Board of Adjustment, and then the library board, and I do a lot of other volunteer things. I've always been an outdoor person, did camp counseling as my college summers, and still like to kayak when I can. I wish I had my own, I don't. But I really like the outdoors and I want to keep it going. So I do prairie restoration at Litzinger when it's open. And if any of you would like a tour at some point when it's open, it's really interesting to see what used to be pastures and is now prairie, as well as Deer Creek Riparian. So it's an interesting place to volunteer. So we did a lot of orienteering as a family. I really like to be out there in the woods and miss this. So this is my way of kind of hoping that the next generation can have an outdoors to go to sustain that.
Very good. Thank you. And then staff, you're welcome to say something too if you want, but you don't have to.
Just real quick, I'm Eric Greenfelder. I'm the Director of Parks and Recreation. I am the staff liaison, obviously, because Parks and Recreation fits tremendously with sustainability. So I'm very excited to be a part of this group and to see what we can do for sustainable efforts around the city.
Thanks, Eric.
Hi, and if I could just introduce myself, I am so sorry about the January meeting. I was trying to run the virtual meeting from home and had an unstable internet connection, so I lost connection there. But I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the City of Brentwood. I've been here about 5 years. I guess probably the activity that I've had the most hands-on with sustainability since I've been here is several years ago, back in 2017, the city undertook redoing its comprehensive plan, which I know is on the agenda tonight. And I was kind of listening to how long you've all been in Brentwood. So I'm kind of curious if anybody knew about that year-long process, if they were able to join in back in the day. If not, I wish we would have had this group at that time, because I think we would have probably dove into more details with sustainability at the time. But and we'll talk about this later since it's on the agenda, but sustainability did come up. Again, that was in 2017 when we went all through the public engagement period. And then ultimately the Board of Aldermen adopted the comp plan in spring of 2018. So I look forward to building on what the comp plan only kind of touched on things. And this is a commission that could just take this a long way. So anyway, just want to provide my services as staff liaison to this commission. And it's good to see faces tonight. So thank you.
Thanks.
I guess I'll go.
Sure.
I'm Dan Goomersheimer, the Director of Public Works. My background, I have an undergraduate in civil engineering, master's in business with a minor in project management. I went to University of Illinois, and most of my private sector experiences with water treatment, wastewater treatment, and then I worked for Metro for a little while, so transportation, I was there like 5.5 years. So a little bit of everything. So hopefully I can use some of the civil engineering background and other skills to help. I know sustainability was really big at Metro, and some of the private sector utilities I work for, they looked at biodiesel, solar, all kinds of stuff. So just because for private sector, usually you got rebates, and usually it wound up cutting operations costs somewhat, maybe the payback's longer, but ultimately, they want to be good stewards to the environment and the surrounding community, especially transportation. Oh, and I have a beagle and a kid, a son. So got to throw that out there. This is my second beagle. The other one is no longer with us, so he's the replacement.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for kind of humoring me there. I think it's, I don't know, I think it's good for everyone to sort of get an idea of, say, what everyone's coming from. So back to the agenda, is there a staff report?
Yeah, so I have a few things under the staff report. It was in board docs. You had a chance to look at it, but I'll go over it real quick. The first is the 2021 St. Louis Green Business Challenge. So the city of Brentwood is going to participate in the Green Cities track of the 2021 St. Louis Green Business Challenge. So this is something we did last year. It was our first year, inaugural year in the Green Cities Challenge. And you can continue to participate, and we feel it's important to continue being part of this this challenge. So Janet Levy, who's our communications manager, will lead the city in this endeavor, and we look forward to sharing updates with Sustainability Commission and also getting some ideas of what maybe we should be working on as part of the Green Cities Challenge. So that's the first update. Any questions about that one? Great. So then we also have a quick update on some zero emission buses. If you've noticed, the Metro bus station has been installing electric chargers for new electric bus station or buses. The city has gotten a permit for 20 charging stations. And then staff, I believe it was Bola, was able to see the arrival of a couple of the new buses. So it's exciting to see Metro moving forward with their electric bus program, and that we'll have those charging stations here within the city of Brentwood. And then last is, if you've been by the recreation complex, hopefully you've noticed the new EV charging stations. Those officially went online. We still need to paint the spaces once it gets a little bit warmer, but they have gone online, and I thought it was interesting that in the first couple of weeks, we've already had 18 drivers utilizing the station. We have a dashboard where we get to see everything. So that is equivalent to eliminating 88 kilograms of greenhouse gas emissions or planting 2 trees, letting them grow for 10 years. So it's amazing how quickly those benefits add up already for that EV charging station. So that's something we're able to do with the board support, and we've got half of it paid by a grant from Ameren. So it's a great addition to the city. And then finally, what I didn't put on there, but I thought I should mention is the city also just received a grant from the Missouri Department of Conservation for their Land Conservation Partnership Grant Program. We received a $200,000 grant, which will be used to help subsidize the purchase of the land next to Bi-State, and the plan is to turn that into a wetland arboretum in the future. So that's going to be another sort of conservation endeavor the city will be taking here in the next couple of years. So we're very excited about that grant. So that is the staff report. Any questions?
I just have one comment. So for the EV charging stations, they're the more standard plug-in, right? Not like the Tesla specific.
Yes, they're the standard, and you can, I guess Tesla has an adapter if you need it.
Yeah.
The bonus. It's hard
Okay.
to go the other way.
Yeah, I have a friend that just bought one, and he was really excited to know that there was a charger right down the street. So he was really excited about that.
Great.
All right, thank you, Eric.
One more thing just to
Go ahead.
mention, but the committee here recommended the e-cargo bike, and that has been approved by the board to proceed with
Yes.
that trial. And I think that's an indication of how supportive the Board of Aldermen is to what this commission is trying to do. So that's a launch, and Aldermen get free rides.
What's the timeline for that then, Eric? Is that going to be?
We're still waiting for Saris to kind of come up with their timetable. But I continue to bug them on a weekly basis, asking for updates and making sure they know that we are still wanting to be first in line for that.
Very good. Any other questions? All right then. So moving on to the meeting minutes. Any comments or discussion on last meeting's minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right. Old business. We've got a update on the compost grant with some questions. I don't know if anyone had a chance to review that, but the sanitation has some questions on that. Dan, is that something you wanted to
Yes,
talk more about?
correct. Yeah, I didn't know if you had a chance to go through this since I threw in a lot of pictures. I did speak with Manchester. I didn't put it in the report at the time I sent it. I didn't have that conversation yet, but speaking with Manchester, Missouri, their director of public works said they used a compost bin called Earth Machine. And I know it's an NPL 300 model. It's basically an 80-gallon capacity, but it's similar to some of those other bins that are in the report. So it'd be pretty close to the $159 unit. That's like 82 gallons. And it's the same concept. You would dump in your compostables through the top. And then as it composts and degrades, you can pull the finished compost from basically like a gate valve, a drawer on the bottom that you can lift up. So what Manchester said was theirs were roughly $120 for a total package. And that included the little compost pail, like for your kitchen. They said they charge their residents a nominal fee of $20. So if it's $120, the skin in the game is $20 for a resident. The other 100 is picked up by the city. In their case, they went through 250 units at that rate, and they said it was really it was wildly popular in Manchester. So I know they have way more residents than we do. I was trying to buy like 70 units for us. I wasn't sure quite how popular they would be. But then, as you mentioned, some of the questions I had in here, I didn't know. If you look at it, there's just a handful of questions operationally. I don't know if anyone's got a strong opinion on it. The simplest to tackle would be like compost pails. Do you want it in metal or do you want it in plastic? If it's metal, you can get like something fancy like a hammered copper, or more Spartan, which would probably be more recommended by me, just stainless steel. Those are like the higher end ones, like $30. Plastic is down around $20. Then as far as the units themselves, do you want a unit? I believe we said no wheels, so it'd be stationary. But then do you want it to be able to be tumbled or just stationary? You dump it in, it composts, there's ventilation, and then you pull from a drawer below. Or do you like the tumbler where you can rotate the contents around? Sometimes it'll degrade a little faster since you're introducing oxygen and flipping over the contents. It's mixing. And in some of these that I found that are the stationary type, you can decant the liquid from the bottom. So as things are degrading, you're getting this compostable, they call it compost tea, but you could use that to fill like a watering can or something like that and dump it on flowers, assuming that whatever the flowers are would need those nutrients of your compost mix. So those were some of the basic questions. And then as far as, I guess one of the most important would be the financial question of, you know, how much do you want to spend per unit? And then how much do you want to charge a resident? I think some of you had them in past experiences at other cities. You know, what would be the comfort level? You know, you probably don't want to charge, you know, if it's $120, you don't want to go 50-50, that's 60-60. So that's probably not going to get a lot of favorable votes, especially the first time composters. I don't think, you know, me personally, I wouldn't want to spend $50 or $60 for something that I wouldn't know how to use very well. You know, is it 20? Is it 25, 30? I don't know, just looking for some direction so I can put that together in an outline, then represent it. And then hopefully we can have a meeting, you know, with Missouri Botanical Garden and do like a sign up sheet, figure out who's interested. And since it's under 10,000, we could just get quotes. We don't need an RFP. We can get quotes from vendors. Or if you have a particular one in mind, you know, I could check that off and get quotes just for that particular one. A lot of things to consider.
So I can just give you like personal experience with composting and kind of what has worked for us in Missouri. We've had both the plastic and the metal containers in the kitchen. And I think for long-term use, the metal ones just hold up better. The plastic, the lid broke on ours. And the metal one has been great. And we got a little bit larger size. I could find out for you exactly which one it is, but it was about $30 and it's been very
Right,
handy.
they're usually like a little over a gallon. Yep.
Yeah, I think, yeah, that's about right. And the lid fits tightly, so there's no smell in the house or anything. And it takes a few days to fill it up and then we can take it outside. Right now we have both kinds of composters, the one that's just a stationary kind of box and you can pull out the bottom. What we found so far is it takes a long time for that to compost. And we do get soldier flies, like soldier fly larvae, which helps the compostable material degrade, but it's pretty gross and your kids do not want to take the compost out. So that one has not worked as well for us.
And if you can't get the kids to do it, I mean, what's the point?
Then what's the point? And we have one of the tumbler ones, and we found that composts more quickly. And when I was looking, I looked at all the things that you've put out here, which is great. There are also some that have like 2 compartments. A lot of times when you're composting, they have you like fill up one composter and then you let that compost down while you continue to fill up another one. So those 2 compartment ones might be handy for first time composters where you would fill it up for a while and then let that one compost down while you're continuing to collect scraps in the kitchen, and you can start filling up your second side. So that's, I mean, this is just like personally our experience composting, but that would be the feedback. And I do like that the options you were just talking about are a little less expensive. So like $120 seems reasonable for the city to, you know, that's a cost that we could then acquire or purchase a lot of compost for the community, but having it be like $20 or $25 for somebody to kind of have their introduction to composting, I think is a good, I think people would be willing to do that and kind of jump into this new activity.
Yeah, thanks, Lindsay. I think, well, I appreciate your insights. And I was thinking similarly, like I think the 200 and 400 gallon, you know, the size of those is probably too big for most homes. So something, you know, in the 50 to 80 gallons is probably more reasonable. And I just think anything that's, I don't know, I mean, are there some that as much as they can be sort of a continuous, like you're just you add in the top and you pull out compost as it made at the bottom, or less sort of a batch, where you have to stop. You don't have anywhere to go with your scraps. You have to just let it do its thing until you can start it up again. I don't really know, but I think that the more you can, more user friendly, I guess, where it's more of a easy sort of continuous thing.
Yeah, we can focus on the dual chambered ones and the single chambered, because I did find dual chambered ones too, right around that price point, under 200. And then, as you mentioned, you can keep one stationary and just load scraps in it, and then the other one can tumble independently to mix it. With the stationary ones, the comments I saw, like from, I guess, people's almost like a Yelp review, where the main complaint I saw was people needed an aeration fork. So as they dump stuff on the top, then they have to push this fork down in there and twist it and get those comments kind of mixed up manually. I think if you make things too much maintenance, I don't think I think they'll lose interest in it. I guess is what I'm trying to say, that if it's too much maintenance, then maybe they won't want to do it. And then you're back to square one, where they just dump it in the trash and it goes to a landfill.
Yeah, so Lindsay, like the last one that was the compost tumbler that was the example supplied, is that a deal where you fill it to a certain level and then stop, and then tumble it and let it do its thing for a while, and then harvest and then start over? Or
so that's why you would want to have two if you have a single chamber. So like we filled up our stationary one, and now we're filling up the one, and we're tumbling it more, but also in the winter things don't decompose much.
Right.
So now we're going to have just two full compost bins at some point. So that's why I think the dual chamber, and for families, if it's 1 to 4 people, they may not generate so much. So it could be like those dual chambers, I think, had maybe 27 gallons each. The ones that I looked at were about 27, 30 gallons a piece. It may be plenty. And especially in the summer or the warmer months, it will decompose faster. And if we teach them how to compost and add some clippings in there, and they rotate it, once a week or something, it will compost more quickly. So that would be my, that would be my recommendation.
Well, I would be fine deferring to Lindsay's expertise and suggesting, if there's a different model, maybe that this type of two chamber model, that all sounds good. Anyone else?
Yeah, and all of this is great for people with a single family home. I think those of us with the small condos here are going to have a real problem finding a place to do this. It's just something that a small pan on your counter is one thing, but adding anything else here is going to be an issue. Maybe Tika has ways that she can think of that we could adapt this, but for my part, I don't see a lot of people in Brentwood Forest buying into this at all.
Right, and I'm glad you brought that up. I did want to maybe ask the city folks a bit more about, it's the comment in the memo was that storage of compost units outside the condo units is not allowed. So do we know, is that a city thing, or is that a Brentwood Forest? Is that their own rule that they don't allow that? Anyone?
I'm not sure if it's in sort of the policies book. I'd have to look through it, but anything that we do here in Brentwood Forest, as you probably already know, we have to go through the board of Brentwood Forest. So the city could be doing something, but we have to make sure we bring it to the board, and then they have to approve and then implement, so I suppose, I don't know, Kathy, do we take it to the board meeting tomorrow, or how does it work?
I don't know. My feeling is if something is on your deck, it's yours. But what is not is common ground, and you don't touch common ground without going to the board of managers for that. So I have never heard what you read, Andy. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be in the bylaws, and I just don't recognize that. So I think we'll have to do some inquiry before we figure out. I don't know.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot to figure out in Brentwood Forest, and we're going to have the same questions for the villas and Hamley Station as well, the other condo in town. And these are completely valid reasons, but I don't think we would want to stop for the rest of the town with this program while we're figuring out those things for the condo associations. And maybe it's a tweak. Maybe it's a different unit that we do next year or something that does comply. But I think we should progress. And then my second thought was, after we pick the item here, I mean, we still wanted to talk about, is there a requirement that whoever buys these goes through some training, even if they have compost experience as well? So I don't want to lose sight of that as well.
Yeah, so I think, I don't know, my initial thought was perhaps, I mean, certainly it would be good to know more about how we could make these more available to renters in these communities, whether that's getting them or seeing if they're allowed, and potentially, getting sort of communal, larger communal things that many people could contribute to and participate in, or maybe even smaller units that could fit on a deck or something, that personal space, and possibly the $7,000 grant isn't a ton, but perhaps some of that could be held back from the initial purchase to kind of see where that might go, so that we could maybe if we can figure something out, we can allocate some to maybe some of these bigger communal units or something as a test.
Yeah, I would kind of second that. Maybe do like a staged rollout or something along those lines. Kind of have the single family houses be sort of a test run, kind of quote unquote, and then kind of as we learn, develop it out to the more complex situations. Might be a good place to start.
And I welcome any discussion too on the what Brandon just mentioned, the some sort of training. I think I agree. I like the idea of that's part of the skin in the game, I guess, is say you bring your $20 or whatever it is that we decide, and then show up to basically put out a flyer that says, if you're interested in these units, here's the details on what we're proposing, what do you have to pay, what the city would provide, and if you're interested, come show up, sign up, or virtually or whatnot, and have that be part of it, because I do think it's worth. It would certainly improve the sort of the success rate, I guess, if you will, of people actually continuing to use these things if they have a little bit of, it's a pretty basic training. I know you got to get a certain mix. Lindsay, you can provide some input on that, but greens and browns and stuff like that, I think. But I like that idea, and I also like the idea of providing both the countertop unit. And again, I think for everyone's clarity, correct me if I'm wrong, but if this is basically just a vessel, a temporary vessel, to kind of keep inside, that you can use to fill the bin. It's not really doing any composting in that thing, but it's sort of that in between, and instead of having to take multiple trips to and from your bin, you're just kind of collecting your scraps in this and then taking it out every few days or something. So I like that idea. I think that will, that extra $20 or $30 would help the adoption of it, help people to actually use it. Yeah, Brandon, go ahead.
Hey Dan, one quick question. If we don't spend the entire $7,000, can we hold it back, or is this it evaporates if we don't spend it in a year?
It evaporates. It's based on a cycle. So I would actually, I'll spend the whole amount. Like when we get recycled carts, like I just got a grant last year, and I just received the carts this year. I had a $5,000 grant, and I probably spent like $6,500. I will never leave money on the table if I can totally avoid it. So with this, I wouldn't get too hung up on the 7,000, because there is capital with Public Works. So if it winds up that it's say 8,000, well, then you spend the first 7,000 is, the county's money, and then the other 1,000 would come from Public Works. So we keep 15,000 for replacing dumpsters, again, recycle carts, recycle bins, if I need special tools for picking something up, I've got budget that allows me to do that. So like with these carts, I'm waiting for the invoice paperwork, but then whenever I get that, I'll be reimbursed. So you'll see, our finances will go negative for a little bit, not negative, but it'll have, that debit there. And then all of a sudden we'll get a credit back from the county whenever we actually get the money from them. So they send us a check and then it'll credit that line item. So.
And then Dan, do you think there's a way, we have all these services where we have pre-negotiated rates on equipment and stuff. Do you think it's possible these tumblers would be in one of those so you don't have to go out for RFQ on these? Or do you think with the 7,000 it's below 10 so you're good no matter what?
It is, yeah, because when I talked to Bola, we would still get quotes to follow our policy, but we don't need an RFQ. What I might do is see if I can just buy one from a vendor without going too crazy on the shipping, just so that we have an example to bring back before we buy a large quantity and then have buyer's remorse if it's, to me, it's kind of like, I know you can buy a car online, but there's no substitute for a test drive. I don't want to get saddled with 70 or 80 units that there's something that's missing, or the photos didn't match up with what I thought I was getting or something. So I know those little, those pails, one of the options is you can get like a replaceable charcoal filter for them too, to help minimize smells. So, and that's still like $30. So that I could just get on Amazon, I know, and bring one in and say, at most I would have spent like $30, $35. It's like, here's a pail. We'll roll out, $1,000 worth of these. And then for the tumblers, maybe we can get those through. I know some of the like Amazon, Wayfair, there's several places, Gardner's, catalogs, they sell them. So usually they'll break down what the shipping is, per 1 unit, per 5 units, per a pallet, whatever they wind up being. So.
Okay. So Andy, I know we kind of have a motion out there, maybe not, but just to kind of synthesize this, I would make a motion that we proceed with the tumbler unit that doesn't have wheels with 2 compartments. And we would also provide like a countertop. Anybody who participates in this program would be required to go through the training, and we would focus on single family homes right now. And then we would, continue to think about Brentwood Forest and another condominium to find a solution there, which is probably going to look different where we are. So that would be my motion. And, if anybody disagrees with that, that's where we're trying to put a motion on the table so we can talk through it. So.
Yeah, I would second that. Go ahead, Lynn.
And is this a verbal vote or do we do a roll call?
Well, now we talk about it. Now we discuss.
Now we discuss, open it for discussion. Sorry.
You have a clear question on the floor. So now we're talking about a specific thing.
I'm just wondering who is doing like the training, or what would that look like for that requirement? Like how would we format that, I guess?
Oh, I was going to do that through the Missouri Botanical Garden through Gene Ponzi. That's when I spoke with Manchester, Missouri. That's what they did as well. That's pre-COVID, of course. So they said they had 2 classes. Like the first one was over 100 participants, and the other one was like right around 100. So they know there was like 250 people or more that attended. And then he sent me the link. They actually worked with a vendor to set up a website strictly for Manchester where you could spend your $20, and then the vendor knew that the rest was coming from the city, so that then everything was paid for and you could order your unit and have it ready for you, whenever you paid your $20. He said Public Works put the 2 pieces together. You had to come and pick up, you came to one of their parks, I believe, or maybe it was at Public Works. I just know that you had to come on a specific day. I figure I'd be nice, and since we already deliver the recycle carts, if you told me you wanted it, and I know like Alderman Weggie lives on Douglas Court, you would give me your address, and then we would just drop it off like we would a recycle cart, because we drive all the streets anyways to look for potholes and things like that. It's no big deal to put it on the bed of a truck and just drop it off at your doorstep. Because I know not everybody's got the wherewithal, your vehicle may not hold it. Or even if it did, you may not want to put it in there because you got car seats and other stuff. And it's a royal pain to fit things in there. Sometimes you can't tumble the seats down. So that would be my recommendation. We set up something through Botanical Garden, do this kickoff meeting, explain how composting's done, and then we can work with the communications manager and do like some sort of sign-up sheet. We can also put it out there on Nextdoor and social media that, hey, this is the day we're having this thing, and if you're interested, be a part of it.
Is there, do you know when they've done it before, was there any cost for that trip?
Botanical Garden free, so yeah, there's zero cost for the class. I just need to coordinate with Janet so that we put it on Zoom or something. Because of COVID, we're not able to meet as, if there's 50 people, I highly doubt they'll want us at the rec center or someplace.
And people could take it even if they weren't interested in participating in this program, if they just wanted to learn more about composting. No reason.
Right.
Right. So it
Yeah,
seems
there's
like
no obligation. Yeah.
So one more detail, which I didn't make in my motion, but like, what do we think the cost share is on this? Is it 50-50 or is it 20? So right now, assuming it's 149 per unit, I know that's a single bucket or whatever, but how much do we think the residents should have to pay?
I think Lindsay had said it too, but I think since sticking with the $20 to $30 range that Manchester had done seems, keeps it accessible to sort of anyone, and it's without pricing people out who might be interested otherwise.
I like the $30 end of that. It's enough putting on the table to make more of a commitment than just something you'd throw away.
It's 2 bills and not just a 120, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we would be willing to pay more for another compost bin because we're doing it already, but to get those first composter people in. Another thing I was just going to say too, to make this, useful to folks that may not be able to compost at their homes if you live at Brentwood Forest, the goal is to minimize what we're sending to the landfill. And there are other ways to reduce your food waste. And so we can incorporate that into the educational piece too. Like just purchasing as much as you need. I just was Googling it, and there's a great little 1-page thing that tells you where to store different produce in your fridge so that it lasts longer. I mean, we can incorporate that because really the goal is to reduce the amount of solid waste that we're generating as a community. So we can include that part.
Great. If we can get Jean Ponzi to do anything, she gets people so excited about this. It's just contagious. So I think that'd be a real draw if we can do that.
Yeah, I'll call her up and find out some dates, and then bring it back, see what works.
Any further discussion?
Just to add, it might be kind of fun to tie it into if it's something we're doing in the spring. That's when Earth Day is. So maybe.
Oh yeah, April 22nd.
I think it's timely. If we could do it in April, that would be an idea.
Yeah, and if anyone else is like me, I get really excited about the gardening stuff when things start to warm up, in the springtime, and that's when it's a good time to kind of get people started on it. So if we can pull it together by then, that'd be nice. Anyone else? All right, so we'll go ahead and have anyone all in favor of the proposal articulated by Brandon, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, Dan, you have your your directions.
Fine. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. All right, moving on to new business. First item was, just kind of a discussion of our, sort of the action plan, the goal setting for, for this commission. The part of the agenda, staff has included some documents for review. There were some of these were same ones from last time. There was the adopted budget, believe the comprehensive plan was also on there, but there were items that were sort of, it was kind of condensed down a little bit from last time, highlighted and sort of sifted through the pages that are of most pertinence to this committee. And then there were some additional examples of sustainability plans and the climate action plan, which are some additional items. But I guess for this item, kind of open it up a little bit to, people's ideas on, again, what you would like to see this committee do. I think, my own personal thought is, certainly sort of being an advisory committee to the Board of Aldermen is probably the primary role, at least for the founding of the commission. So certainly any of these things that we can work with, city officials to try to get more of this stuff, both into the, city code, maybe the things that can be changed within the city code to make things, easier or more possible that maybe aren't right now. Or, again, initiatives like this with the Parks Department or Public Works, suggestions or, them coming to us with items for advice. But even outside of that, like, hosting, proposing different events to possibly host, awareness type events for residents, businesses, reaching out to businesses. One example, I guess, so I took some initiative recently. There was, with a discussion about the new charging stations and the incentives that Ameren now has for businesses to install these stations. They basically cover half the cost. I had reached out to REI. I thought that would, the Brentwood Plaza there would be a really good place for some fast charge stations, level 3, which are kind of more geared toward, people traveling, where they make a pit stop and do a quick charge and then hit the road again. So, being right there at the intersection of the two highways, and with all that, the shopping options along there to kind of kill that half hour. I didn't hear anything back, but things, yeah, that was last week. But things like that, I think, just making these businesses aware of these types of incentives, and just doing little things like that, maybe putting out flyers or things along that nature. I think all those and potentially other things, like I said, well, I welcome other ideas of, what people think we could, this committee can do to best serve the residents. Yeah, Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to kind of add on top of that is what we provided were the items that the city has already put in place through either the comprehensive plan or through goal setting for the budget this year. The climate plan, obviously, 2014 is an older plan, but it's something, again, the city works toward. But the idea is for the commission to help the city refine its vision of sustainability and give guidance for the officials, the Public Works Committee, as well as staff on what we should be doing moving forward for the commission. So thank you very much.
Yeah, go ahead, Brianna.
Yeah, and I think staff are putting these items in here. I didn't even know we had a climate action plan in 2014, so that was quite eye-opening to read. And the good news is I think we're directionally doing most of these things. One of the recommendations in there was to form an advisory committee of residents, right? So like it's happening, right? So I think that's good. Just in terms of timing, I mean, I think ultimately we probably want a sustainability plan as a town, but I'm not sure this commission is ready to start chewing on that quite yet. I think we should continue to focus on more tactical things, the e-cargo bike, the composting program, things that are kind of in work and providing guidance, and then kind of get into the flow of kind of the town and maybe head in for a sustainability plan maybe in 2022, just to get a bigger picture. In terms of timing, like, the Board of Aldermen will start looking at the budget for 2022 in 5 months. And that's an opportunity, just like they highlighted all the sustainability items, that's an opportunity for us to provide input to make sure that in 2022, we are planning for the right things, and then we're taking advantage of those. If we're buying cars in 2022, are they going to be electric or not? And all those kind of details. I think there's going to be insertion points for this commission to have real deal impact very near term. So I'm a fan personally, just my opinion, of very kind of tactical things for the next couple months as we get into the flow. Just my 2 cents.
Go ahead, Alex.
Sorry, having an unpause or unmuting issue. Yeah, no, I agree with Brandon. I think the tactical to start would be a good way to really utilize the committee right off the bat. But one other note I had too, I think something that we should probably focus on, and I know this is a new committee, but really getting the citizen comments or having citizens in this meeting. I think we're going to come out with a lot of really good ideas, I think. But there's a lot of people out there that maybe they didn't want to be on the committee, but there's a lot of really good ideas out there. So I don't know, maybe Melissa, you kind of mentioned that that was kind of your wheelhouse. Maybe we, I know it was in the newsletter that this committee formed, but maybe kind of getting it out there that we're really looking for ideas, almost like a comment Dropbox type thing, just to kind of add to the list of ideas. It's going to make our meetings longer. I hope, but I think that would be a good thing going forward.
Yeah, and I'll add that we were actually out of town on a quick ski trip this weekend, so I just got back about less than an hour before this meeting started, so I haven't gotten through all that. The climate action plan is something I will be digging more into in the next week or two, because I'm really curious to see. I haven't really looked at it at all, but to see what that was, what that came up with. And I think from what from the little I know about it and what was done, there was some greenhouse gas inventorying of the city as well, and that should make a good starting point for looking for areas of improvement. That should have an inventory like that, kind of calls out a lot of those sources, and then you can start thinking about what to do about the emissions, how to improve them, and stuff like that. So I encourage everyone else, if you haven't had a chance like me to go through a lot of this stuff in detail, try to before the next meeting.
Hey, Andy, just one more thought. I mean, I think the opportunity, there are so many ideas coming at you all that you may or may not know. I mean, it seems like every time I'm in a meeting, they're like, hey, we should throw that to the Sustainability Commission and let them talk about it. I think prioritization is going to be one of our first things that we have to do. I mean, for example, Dan was kind of joking about the next trash truck we buy should be electric. And, I laughed and I went home and started looking at it, and that's actually a viable thing we could probably do. And we would be a leader. So, there's just so many ideas out there right now, how we get our arms around them and get stuff done. The prioritization, I think, is going to be a big challenge for us.
Well, I appreciate that feedback, because that's that's part of it too. Is I don't really, we're gonna have to feel out a little bit how much of what we're discussing is being brought to us by folks from the city, and the ideas say, hey, what about this, and how much it's going the other direction, where we kind of bring up things and push it to the city to look into. So I appreciate the comment about the sustainability plan. I agree. It should definitely be on our radar. It should come out of this commission at some point. But it probably does make sense to sort of get our feet underneath us a little bit more, and tackle that when we sort of get a little bit of a rhythm going.
Another thing that I noticed, I read through the climate action plan. I mean, it calls out for things to be measured regularly and inventories to be made on a cycle, like a 5-year cycle. And I think that that's where we could maybe look at what the baseline was and what we feel is important to start measuring as we're moving into this idea of a sustainability plan. How do we want to incorporate what's already been done and what's important to be measuring in 2021 versus what we thought was really important in 2014? It could have changed. So that could be something that we could help with as well.
Anyone else? So as far as this agenda item, I'm not sure if there's anything to, really have a motion on. I'm open to any suggestions. Go
Andy,
ahead.
I don't know if this would help for next meeting, because I know we are throwing a lot at you and we appreciate everything. And again, we just want to be assistance as we can as staff. But would it be better maybe, to kind of put together a report on the 2014 climate plan, talk about what was presented to us, what we've done since then, the measuring things that Lindsay's talked about, and that ready as almost a presentation for the next meeting. It's almost the initial jumping off point, and even talk about, goals for, things that they talk about that are short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, those things like that. That way we can start wrapping our heads around something like that.
I think that would be great. I don't want to, like I said, that's kind of leave it.
That's my job.
I don't want to put too much on on the staff either.
No, I'm happy to do it.
Great. Yeah, that would certainly be helpful, I think.
And Kelly will help too.
Happy to.
And just one more thing I just wanted to mention, as Alderman Wegge said, getting ready for the budget for next year is vitally important if there's going to be costs associated with anything we do. We did put just a lump sum of money in this year's budget, as I think a request from Alderman Wegge and Alderwoman O'Neill, as almost as hey, we know we're going to be starting this commission. And so if there are things that would help you guys get ready, if we need to do surveying, or if we need to, spend a little bit of money on, marketing and things like that, that we do have money in the budget for that this year.
Yeah, thanks for reminding us of that, Eric. I believe it's 25,000, but don't quote me on that.
Between two accounts, it's about 25,000. Yes.
Sounds right.
Go ahead, Lisa.
What I was going to maybe add this evening is, in terms of priorities, I mean, obviously there's just so many things this commission and staff could work on, but I definitely would be interested in trying to look at what priorities should be for new construction and new development. So, just even like the EV charging stations, what I've been reading about it is, even if like a particular, like let's just say the new hotel, that's going up right now. I mean, maybe if the hotel decided for right now, it wasn't in the cards to actually completely install the EV charging stations, there are ideas out there just to get it kind of conduit ready and
right.
to, kind of roll into that. So, I mean, again, this is your commission, so I don't want to look like, staff is trying to take over in any means, but I'd be happy also just to jot down, some of the things that I think maybe we need to think about being proactive, because that's the time to capitalize on it, when they're first showing up and getting ready to do something here in Brentwood. So, yeah, I know with just working with other commissions, planning and zoning commissions, sometimes things come up with their reviews and so forth. So I would like to kind of just try to draw all this together, as well as, again, some ideas that have come up either through Planning and Zoning Commission or through the various board committees. So we certainly could go ahead and, just kind of write that up as well, just for your consideration.
Not to piggyback on Lisa too, I think the comp plan, as Lisa talked about earlier, has obviously some sustainability initiatives in there too. So as I continue to think about this in my mind, reframe this in my mind, what we could do is put together a presentation about the different things that have been put in place by the city, and what they listed out priorities, and then we can kind of even small strategic planning to the next meeting list the prioritization as Alderman Weggie talked about, short-term, medium-term, long-term, and talk about what cost might be associated with that. So that might, develop into that. So I think with Lisa's help and we can add planning and zoning and public works and parks and rec would probably be smaller section of those things, but we could probably do all of those together in a report and kind of maybe lead that discussion a little bit more next month if that would be helpful.
I certainly think so. I welcome others' thoughts. And I do, Lisa, really appreciate the idea about the, sort of those initiatives to be more ready, for developments to be more ready, like solar ready and EV ready are two things that are getting a lot of attention recently. Just when you're doing a new construction, having the, basically the conduits or the space in the panel or whatever it is for the EV charging stations. A lot of times it's having these plugs, just having the 220 plugs available near parking so that they can add a charger, anytime. Is something definitely worth looking into. I know the city of St. Louis, I believe they just passed something. I don't know, it's there's different lines of thinking on where you draw the line. I think they're making a requirement for like all multi-residential unit or multi-unit residential developments over a certain number of units, or any businesses of a certain size. There's definitely places where, as an EV owner myself, there's places that make more sense to require or even have charging than others. Just your normal retail business, that doesn't make as much sense to me as a hotel, where it's overnight charging, with levels 2, which is mostly what people will be using, which is what we have at the rec center. That's usually, several hours to get a full charge if it's already down on most cars. And so that type of thing is more of an, to me, it makes more sense for something like a hotel or an apartment building, things like that, than just, a store of some sort. Anywhere is good, but, we don't want it to be a burden, on businesses unnecessarily, where, we're kind of just doing it just because. So I don't know, I just wanted to throw that out there. I guess I do think that's another thing we certainly should be looking into, especially with all the new development along Brentwood Bound that's going to be happening in the next few years. That's a really good opportunity to have this stuff in place so that we have our ducks in a row, I guess, when all that stuff starts being built.
Good.
So again, I don't think, unless anyone wants to make a motion, I don't think there's really anything, a motion needed for item 7A, the action plan. Anyone else feel differently? Okay. Well, we'll try to keep things moving here. So yes, item 7B was again just talking about sustainability plans. There were several additional examples provided of other cities around. There were some provided last time in the minutes and then, or in the agenda, and then some additional ones this time. I think, this is not, again, something that would be good on your free time to sort of be reading up on, and, we can start thinking about what, this might include, what it might look like. But at this point, I think we're probably in agreement that it's not a high priority item. It doesn't really, not something we need to try to start getting put together yet, but certainly thinking about. It would be good to, peruse some of these just to see what the items are, sort of what the high level items are that are covered in these plans, so that we can, at least be thinking about those. Again, sort of a guide. Any Any other comments or discussion on this item? All right. And then again, this is set 7Cs, the climate action plan. Again, we already mentioned it, but I'd recommend anyone who hasn't yet to please just, take a closer look at that. It sounds like Eric's going to summarize it a little bit for us, which is appreciated. So again, I think that should provide some pretty good direction, guidance for, both better understanding what the city's done, what the city has, and then using that as a jump off point.
Hey, Andy, one quick thing on that. I mean, one of the recommendations in there was to redo the measurements in 2020 approximately, and they suggested hiring an intern because that report was written by an intern. So, that might be something we would maybe want to think about next meeting or the meeting after. Is that something we would recommend going to go get a summer intern to do this? And I believe there's some mechanism in place to do that.
That was a city hired intern, you're saying? Or
yeah, I think they are hired through the Missouri Gateway chapter. So it's not like we just found an intern and then tried to get them to do a climate assessment. I think they have the tools and everything they needed through the Gateway chapter of wherever that came from. So that might be something we might want to think about in the near term.
Anyone else? All right. So then the item D was just sort of a placeholder. I wanted to put it in there just to sort of open up the floor for, we can kind of, again, a bit of a brainstorm session to just come up with a list, start a list, I guess, of any ideas anyone has for, just anything really that this committee could be doing in the future, or cities could be doing, anytime in the next year or so. I just wanted to kind of put something in here to open up the floor for getting some of these ideas on paper and getting a start here. Again, for our purposes, organizing our own thoughts, but also putting some ideas, in front of the city staff that just got to sort of keep those wheels turning a little bit. So I'll open it up.
Hey, so I wanted to. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to. I made a list of things, and I don't know if don't laugh with them, I should say, but I wondered if there was a place in Brentwood where one could go and, for example, get all their Amazon packaging recycling, like somehow recycle the packaging. Like that's one of my concerns. Plastic bag recycling, not everybody's taking them right now, but some places are. And it'd be good to like go somewhere where you can drop off your plastic bags. You could do some electronic recycling and Amazon packaging recycling, rather than waiting for like Earth Day to come along, or like one of these fairs that take place where they take all this stuff. So that was one big recycling bit that I was thinking about after our last meeting. And then I'm really interested in the city taking on something like planting of milkweed for the monarch butterflies that make their route from the north to the south. So that was another. And then I spoke to Kathy earlier about doing a field trip and, locking down a date or something as it gets warmer. And then finally, perhaps hosting some kind of a food truck, local, vendors, food truck market, something like that, where people can come in and eat local made things. So there's that. I'm going to shut up now. Those are my ideas.
Yeah, thank you for those. I think those are all good suggestions. I think the one, the milkweeds, those sort of, butterfly pollinator way station things is definitely something I've thought of as well for the Parks and Rec to sort of maybe have I think they do a pretty good job already, but not really sure if there's any sort of formal, planting list. I know there is for trees, but with shrubs and stuff like that, planting natives. But yeah, and it's sort of maybe putting plans in for that type of landscaping, a little more granular level of putting these sorts of things in. There's certainly an educational bit to that as well. If you put some signage up, this is a Monarch way station or what have you. I really like those ideas. And then I will tack on to the, certainly the city does do, I'm not sure how regular they are, maybe quarterly electronics recycling. I also do shredding events, but certainly like to see those continue. And then one thing I've been thinking we could add to that on the same lines is like paint and household chemical disposal, like proper disposal type events. I hope I'm not the only one, but I've got a real problem with, accumulating old cans of paint in the basement, and they just sit there, and a lot of times they'll never get used. But no one, you don't just want to throw them in the trash. So things like that. And then drugs as well. Pharmaceuticals, they expire, and it's nice to have those types of events where that's certainly something you don't just want to throw a bunch of that in the trash.
I remember when my father passed away about 4 years ago, I had a bunch of his medications that I went to drop off at the police station here in Brentwood, and they had an actual box. I don't know if they still have it, because like I said, it was a few years ago. And then as far as paint goes, I've taken paint that I've had left over to Eureka. That's like the closest place out west, and there's a place where you have to actually pay them to get rid of your paint, but they will take it and dispose of it and all this stuff. So just FYI on that, on those two items for now, but it would be good to have local.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think, just to tie into this, I think we have such an opportunity to do a ton of community outreach and education. Even just letting people know that there are these places where you can go. Even if we can't do it in Brentwood, like you said, Andy, we've all got things in our house we need to get rid of. If we knew how to do it and to communicate, like to Mel's point, she could help us with that communication piece. People I would love to have that information. And you were talking about the milkweed. There was a program where there was signage you could put in your yard that you were a pesticide-free yard. If we wanted to do something around native plants or, habitat for butterflies, some kind of signage for a business if they had those plants out front, or even for homes, they could have something on their home that says, butterfly way station here, or just to get that information out. These are just ideas, but I think we have endless projects we could work on, but I think looking at how we can educate our community around recycling and waste reduction could be really exciting.
It would be lovely to combine a day with some of these events. A while back, I talked to Major Hawkins about doing a drug pickup at the same time they do the shredding event, whether the shredding truck would meet at the police station so that they could have the drugs safely locked, or what we'd have to work out. But if we could combine some of these, get people thinking, and it wouldn't take that hard to set up to administer something like that if we could pick a date and go for it.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, please. I didn't say it before, but everyone, please just feel free to jump in. I don't want to be the the czar who has to call on you.
Yeah, I was just gonna throw out. We're kind of it's easy to kind of talk through all these, but is there anywhere that we could, like a central document or something where we could all just jump on and kind of throw ideas in? It's not really. I don't know if it's public enough if we do something like that, but if there's a way that we could, have just like an ongoing brainstorming document that we always can refer back to and add things and kind of go from there. I don't know if that's possible or not, but.
Yeah, I think that could make sense for this group. Certainly sort of a living document that we, can all kind of get into. Is that something that the city, is there any sort of, I don't know if board docs, maybe can accommodate something like that where it's, something that's editable, that multiple people could get in? Maybe something to look into.
Yeah, or even if it was something that was like editable, up to the next meeting, and then it would sort of lock out, and then it would kind of reset with the old ideas, but then you could add, a 30-day rolling calendar or something like that.
This is something I can look into with IT. There's a couple things. There's absolutely Google Docs. That's probably the simplest form. All the way to just a living Excel document that, as Alexander said, we just keep updating from meeting to meeting. The city does have access to SharePoint, which is basically a community of where we just have a sustainable commission SharePoint. It would be something password protected for just our commission members, and we could put the document in there. That's what I probably need to talk to IT a little bit more about. And things as we continue to work on stuff, we can just put it all in SharePoint for everyone to kind of see and be able to update.
Anyone else have any ideas to throw out there?
A couple. So one is the the electric trash truck that I mentioned. Is that something that we would maybe want to entertain thinking about because of the tremendous maintenance savings that we would get on that? And then even further, should we make a policy or recommend a policy that, all vehicles bought in Brentwood should be electric from here on out, where that's viable. And then, Andy, you mentioned the electric vehicle building requirements. I think we should take that on. See what the city passed and make some recommendations for our new home builds, for businesses coming in, and is that something we would want to recommend that we do as a city? And then also, how do we get around, assuming that almost everybody's going to be driving electric vehicles at some point in the future, where in Brentwood, where a lot of people are parking on the streets, in Brentwood Forest, where there's, set parking, how do we put all those chargers out, and how do we make sure that there's a code that allows us to do that? And then I'm gonna steal one from Kathy, but we should join the Green Dining Alliance. We're gonna have a bunch of restaurants coming in Brentwood bound, hopefully, and I think that would help us attract the kind of restaurants that we want. It would be one thing that would help us attract a bunch of those.
Thank you. Good point.
Dan, did you have your hand up?
Oh, I bumped it, but then I actually did think of something. The city's website underneath sanitation, it probably just needs better advertising, but there's a St. Louis household hazardous waste link under additional links. And then it lists the different locations. There's only like 2 locations in St. Louis County for solvents, for, like your turpentine or whatever. They do haul away latex, but they charge you if you have an abundance of it. If it's just a little bit of latex paint like left in a can, we always recommend you put kitty litter or something in there to absorb it, and then you can put it in with your regular trash. But I think, to Mel's point, there's not enough education and awareness. It's there, but if you didn't know to click on that link, there should probably be some more attention, like if you have the following, maybe a graphic of solvents or something, and then the link underneath it so that it grabs your attention. Because I just passed it up too, and then when I clicked on it, then it took you to a different website. And I do know there's also another locator within there. If you have plastic bags, like Target will take it. I know Home Depot takes batteries up at the front counter. If you've got, either rechargeable or even non-rechargeable batteries, I try to remember to take them with me to the hardware store, and you just throw them up at the front counter. There's bins for it. Target, I know, takes plastic bags. So does, Dearborn Schnucks for the most part. But there's a locator. We just have to get that awareness out there that you use the locator, punch in your zip code, and it'll give you the different locations.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that back up. I meant to tag on to what Lindsay was saying too. I agree. I think that as far as priorities go, that maybe that could be one of our, first lowest hanging fruit is just, and it's not only going to help us organize, our ideas a little bit, but getting some sort of getting these, I don't know, some flyers or some sort of, Facebook or Nextdoor post, set of posts together just to, I totally agree. Just making people more aware of these resources, like a list of places in Brentwood that take all these things, like I said, the stores that take the bags, the stores that take the batteries. I think that would go a pretty long way, certainly to get people thinking about it. And then, like I said, also we can kind of go from there about things that we could be doing more actively to promote these, like holding certain events or whatnot.
Oh, go ahead.
Just before I forget it, the idea just popped into my head that maybe we could put a little message or tip in the Pulse, where we share little tidbits like this, like, did you know you could go on this website for this information, and just sort of direct people once a month in one way, shape, or form. If we think that the readership of that is pretty targeted, that could be an idea of somewhere to put the message on an ongoing basis, like the sustainability monthly tip or something like that.
I was going to ask how many people actually read that, if it's viable, because they don't deliver to any of the condos. Henry Station doesn't get them. We don't get them. You have to go out of your way to try to find one if you're looking for it.
There's a lot on the sidewalks.
They stopped doing it. 1,400 of those sitting out in the rain sometimes. It's just way
Yeah, but I actually read it and find it, interesting, and I enjoy it. So
yeah, it's viable if enough people read it. I have no idea how much.
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing to find out how many are printed or how many ads are actually taken up on.
Yeah.
I think a fair amount. We did a survey just from where people get their information about the school district, and lots of people get information from the Pulse. The other thing I was gonna say, if we list businesses that take batteries or plastic bags, that's like free advertising for those businesses too. So I would think that it may even create other businesses to participate in some kind of a take back program, which would be kind of neat in Brentwood. And then just one more off that subject, but when we were talking about commercial development, also I wanted to stress the residential part too, because I know Andy and I both have solar panels, and when we were building our house, we knew that we were going to do that. And so we made those decisions to make sure that we could put solar panels on our house at a later date. We, of course, I don't think would require that of new builds, but we could provide that information to the builders. Have you thought about this? Impervious pavers, solar panels, just some other green ideas that you don't have to do, but you could, and here are the benefits, just for an education piece that we give everybody that is doing any kind of rehab or building at a residential level in Brentwood.
I agree. And I think, I don't know, we probably need to know more about, what sort of burden these types of things would be, what kind of financial burden, or, what kind of costs are associated with some of these types of, how much of a premium is it, as far as if you were to require it. I don't think making a house solar ready, doing those things to sort of make it solar ready, I don't think that, doesn't seem like that would add a whole lot. Again, just kind of making sure there's maybe adding a conduit, making extra space in the panel or things like that. And there's not a whole lot of, relatively speaking, not a lot of new single home, residential new construction. It's a lot of rebuilds and stuff. So I like the idea of potentially, at least looking into making some of those types of things required, or maybe like you said, there's a list of we've got a list of a dozen things and you have to do at least 3 of these, here's some ideas, but we want to see at least 3 or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, that's I like the idea of, again, maybe that's something the city could look into more on whether or not that's something they'd be willing to, require, I guess.
Hey, Eddie, I'd like to go back. I mean, your comment about the low hanging fruit. I mean, I think we're onto something here, right? I mean, one of the things I like about this commission is that communication is always a challenge. You keep doing it with our community, no matter what, over and over and over. And at the very least, we have 7 residents who are cognizant of these issues we're talking about, and it can at least be responsive on Facebook or Nextdoor when somebody says, hey, where do I take my plastic bags, which seems to pop up every 3 weeks, on Nextdoor. So, I don't know, is there some action or something, or should we just be thinking about how we could start really kind of like getting this out there more?
I don't know if this helps, but again, as we talk about getting prepared for next month and the presentations and things like that, and taking notes, and I'm sure Kelly will help me. I think what we can do is after the presentation is developed almost a priority list of things that come out of everything we've talked about tonight. And again, we can go short term and side short term if it's first 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, medium, long. And that will give the city, especially city staff, the direction of, as far as the commission, what we should be doing. I would defer to the aldermen and women on the commission, assuming that prioritization would probably need to go to Public Works for approval. But I think that we could do pretty quickly. And then the commission then becomes as staff moving forward with a lot of these initiatives, these prioritizations, bringing them back to the commission for updates. And then the commission really focusing on long-term goals and how we get there as a city.
I like the idea. I mean, I think that we definitely need to start getting that organized in some way. There's so much. Sustainability covers a pretty broad swath of topics, and there's just a lot of potential things that could be doing. And we need to. I need some help, I guess, on what the best means, is to sort of try to get that organized on paper. But it's certainly something, that's the first step that we have to do is get these things organized better.
Well, and I think, like I said, I think staff can take the first crack at that for next month's meeting.
Okay.
General outline. I mean, I already see categories. One's going to be communication, obviously, community outreach. One's going to be, ordinances and policies. One, so I can start grouping them in what seems to be like categories, and we can kind of tackle it that way.
Great. Is that something that requires a motion and approval from?
I think next month we'll probably need the approval to take to Public Works.
Okay. Well, if anyone else has anything else, please chime in. But I'll go ahead and just throw out a few other things that I had sort of been thinking of that I think would be good, similar to the compost bin program. I think I would like to look into doing something similar for rain barrels. I think that would, stormwater seems to be a recurring problem, worsening problem in Brentwood, and anything, it goes along with the sort of, the home gardening aspect, but just it also reduces that stormwater load. It's good to not only have that impact, but make people more aware of the problem and the things that they can do to reduce it. And I don't know if I would suspect that maybe MSD or somebody there's potential grants out there, I think, for something like that. So I'd be interested in city maybe looking into that. Along similar lines, I like the idea of rain gardens. I think that's certainly backyard rain gardens that could start with just the education piece, teaching people what they can be doing, like, native landscaping and such, but also, taking it further to, the city getting more involved with potentially doing these rain gardens along the, like in the tree lawns, along the street. You can see them certain places in the city of St. Louis, Forest Park. They've got, basically they catch runoff before it goes into, it catches it from the street gutter, and it goes through a rain garden to kind of, it's both a kind of a detention, water detention feature, but also it filters and percolates and keeps it out of the sewers. But that's something that the city would have to be more involved in, I think, permitting and then funding. Yes.
The city already has some regulations with that. And if you go look at the parking lot by Drury Inn and Bonefish Grill, they have rain gardens as part of their parking lot runoff system. They're not always beautiful. And I don't know if there's anything we could do to suggest that they be maintained with any particular kind of native plant or something that's pretty, but there is a vehicle in place through the city to implement that. They're aware of it, and it is a requirement in some places, but we could certainly try to strengthen that.
Yeah, so I didn't, I'm glad you mentioned that. I did notice it, I think, in the West Community Bank, that new development there by across from Walgreens. I'm pretty sure they've got something like that also.
Ace Hardware does too.
Yes, that's right. So I don't know, it seems like there's something on the commercial side. But again, even our residential streets, I think it would be cool to start implementing those, or at least looking into the possibility.
Andy, if I could just add
Yes.
one thing.
Sure.
Another rain garden area is over at Mount Calvary Church on Litzinger. And just kind of throwing this out because, they had help from Deer Creek Watershed Alliance putting that in. And I think the parishioners at the church had a group that really knew how to manage it at first. But then after a few parishioners moved on, or, whatever happened, there was kind of a lack of maintenance there, and people just didn't know how to maintain it anymore. And so actually then it kind of went from being a resource to then kind of a troublesome area. But the good thing is that Deer Creek Watershed came back to the table and worked with the church. And I want to say it was something like, instead of going with 10 different varieties of species or plants that was in this rain garden. And once they backed that out to about 4, it became a lot more manageable. Like, people could then learn what they were looking for and what needed to be kept or what needed to be trimmed back or what have you. So that, I thought that was a good learning story, if you will, that I think rain gardens can work, but I think sometimes they can get kind of grandiose and then maybe become a little bit too complex for just the average person. And so it's just kind of something to keep in mind, whether we try to come up with maybe either something that would be mandatory or just even suggestive, that maybe one thing, again, kind of start out with something that and just so, again, that it could easily be taken care of, in the future. So I thought that was kind of a good story, and it all worked out in the end, but that's kind of what had happened in that case. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like I said, I just wanted to throw it out there. I don't know, as a starting point. I'd like the idea seems to check several boxes, as far as alleviating the problem we've got, and they're visible. It's a conversation piece. It gets people thinking, but it's something for the city to maybe think about a little bit more and see if it's worth pursuing. Yeah, and then I also had on here the city or fleet EVs, similar to what Brandon was saying. I love the trash truck idea, again, because it's not only are they big, loud, smelly vehicles that are in the neighborhoods. It'd be nice if they were quieter, and then, but also it's again, they're visible. Everyone sees them on their street 2-3 times a week, and it makes a statement and I think it's pretty cool, it would look, it's a good public perception. Again, it gets people thinking and talking about these things. People that aren't as, maybe yet familiar with EVs, they still seem very novel and weird, and they really aren't if you stop to think about it. But along the similar lines, street sweepers, they make electric ones of those. And again, it's, potentially when those are coming up for, needing to purchase another one, I think those options might be available. But yeah, even with regular, more normal city vehicles, I don't really know, have an idea of what what types of vehicles, other than their larger equipment, pickups and things like that. But there's a lot, there could be a lot of opportunities there, and they do make sense in a lot of, for fleets. A lot of times when you factor in maintenance costs and things like that, it really starts to make a lot of financial sense. So I don't know, anyone else, I'll stop there, but I could go on and on. Anyone else want to throw anything out there before we kind of try to wrap this thing up? All right. So then the next item on the new business is the meeting calendar. So we've got just basically mapped out the rest of the year for the meeting dates for generally the fourth Monday of each month at 6 p.m. So again, just want to kind of put numbers and dates to all those, looking out for the rest of the year for everyone's information.
Hey, Andy, so the next meeting that we have is March 22nd. That's the week of spring break for any of our kids here in Brentwood. Would it be possible to either move that up a week or back a week to accommodate anyone? We will be out of town. I could still call in if the 22nd works best for everyone, but if anyone would be open to considering moving that next one for spring break.
That's fine. That would be fine with me. I have no objection.
Fine with me too. This is Tika.
Okay.
We have a Board of Aldermen meeting on the 15th, so if we moved it to the 29th, that shouldn't conflict with anything. Maybe Kelly has a schedule.
I'm checking here real quick.
And wouldn't it be the 29th anyway? That's the last Monday of the month.
Yeah, it should be free.
This was, the committee was set up, I think, for the 4th, not the last. So let me see here if there's anything else on that date. I don't see anything else on the 29th, so that might be a good date. Yep, that would work. If that works for everybody else, we can change that.
I think if it sounds like if it works for the city folks, it works, should be good for everyone else.
Okay, well, let's just change that then.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Lindsay, for bringing that up. Anyone else have any comments on any of the other dates?
I have a question, just kind of generally. I don't foresee any issues, but if for say you can't make a meeting, what's the protocol to, either do we need to let the group know, or how does that kind of go if you know that you're going to be missing a meeting?
Yeah, good question. I think certainly let city staff know, and or myself. I think we need 4, is it, for a quorum?
Yes, you do.
So that would be the only issue, is if we don't have enough for that quorum, we could still hold a meeting, but we can't vote on anything. So it would limit the board's ability to, or the commission's ability.
And I'll just say life happens, so like
Sure.
we all have meetings, and that's why we have meeting minutes, and that's why we're having staff support us. So,
And that's why we've got more than 4 people on the on the board to allow for absences. So yeah, it's not a huge deal. Don't go too far out of your way to make a meeting if it's not convenient. So anyone else? All right. Citizen comments. Do we have anyone
There are
else?
none. Nope.
All right, and that's pretty much it for the agenda. Anything else anyone wants to add before we adjourn?
Need to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Hi.
Hi.
All right.
All right.
All right, thanks again, everyone. Hopefully we'll
Welcome home.
start condensing this down and try not to run too long each meeting, but I think we covered some good stuff tonight. Appreciate it and look forward to talking to you all at the end of March.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.